The envelope wasn't addressed to me. Not exactly. My name was there, but the account number wasn't mine. And the land listed Margaret's land. Her father's half-acre we'd held on to because she said we should. Had a loan against it. 3 payments behind. I read it twice before breakfast. Made myself eat first. Read it a third time after. Should have known something was wrong before that envelope arrived. Signs were there. Calvin mentioning the land twice in 3 years. Both times casual, both times dropped when I didn't bite. I didn't connect those. Thought it was just talk. Turns out talk was planning. Before I tell you the rest, if you're already feeling what I felt holding that notice, please hit like and subscribe to Familix Revenge. Helps me keep telling these stories. I called my son that same morning. Should have waited. Didn't. 34 years I worked for the city, deciding which trees came down and which ones stayed. Not glamorous work. But it's precise work. You look at a branch. You look at the joint. You look at what's underneath what you can see. You learn to read things that don't announce themselves. I thought I was good at that. Thought it was a skill I'd carried into the rest of my life. The envelope on my kitchen table suggested otherwise. The house has been mine for 22 years. Paid off. Margaret picked it, said the backyard had good bones, which was her way of saying she could see what it would become. She was right. I let the garden go after she died November before last, not on purpose, just did. The tools are still in the same place. I keep meaning to start again, keep not starting. Margaret and I inherited her father's land in 2019. Half-acre outside the city, mostly trees, not worth much by anyone's accounting except hers. She didn't want to sell it. Said it was ours. I didn't argue. Didn't think about it much after that either, which I've had occasion to regret. Calvin is 38. My son from my first marriage, the years I wasn't around enough, the debt I've been paying back in installments ever since. He works in commercial real estate. Good at it, genuinely. He mentioned Margaret's land twice over the years, once at the estate settlement, and once over dinner about 18 months back. Both times I said it would sort itself out. Both times he nodded and moved on. I remember thinking he'd accepted that. I was wrong about what the nodding meant. He wasn't agreeing, he was deciding. He has a boy, Marcus, 14, calls me every Sunday. Basketball scores, school, whatever movie he's seen. Regular as a utility bill. I look forward to it more than I'd probably admit to anyone. I called him before I'd thought it through. Knew I was moving too fast. Did it anyway. That's always been my problem, the thing I say before I've decided whether to say it. Read him the parcel address off the notice. Waited. The silence on his end wasn't the silence of someone caught off guard. I've heard that silence, it's ragged, it fills itself. This was different. This was a man who had been waiting for a specific phone call, and had decided exactly what he would say when it came. Then he said it. You signed it at Mom's funeral, Dad. You weren't in great shape. Calm. Prepared. Like reading from something he'd written down and memorized. I went back. Couldn't help it. The mention of the funeral just took me there. The side room at the church. Calvin beside me, hand on my shoulder, voice low. Just some estate paperwork, Dad. I'll handle it. A pen appeared. People were moving past. Someone mentioned the flowers. I signed. I couldn't read anything that day. I was burying my wife. He emailed the document that afternoon. My signature on it, notarized, dated the day we buried Margaret. I looked at my own handwriting for a long time. Then I thought it through. Notarized means a notary was physically present. Which means Calvin brought one. Which means he had this prepared before the funeral. Before she was gone, I opened my notebook, wrote one line. He brought a notary to her funeral, closed it. Sat there. I went outside, didn't plan to, just found myself in the backyard with no memory of deciding to go there. The garden Margaret never finished. Tools where she left them, which is where I leave them now too, stood there until it got dark. The problem wasn't Calvin. The problem was my signature, my handwriting. I'd signed something at my wife's funeral without reading it, because I couldn't read anything that day. And that was true. And it was also true that a more careful man reads everything. Even that day. Maybe especially that day. Calvin had said I wasn't in great shape. He was right, I hadn't been. Maybe that's on me. I almost went inside and closed the notebook for good on this one. Almost decided that some things you cause, even without meaning to, and you live with them. Then one thought arrived. Small, not a plan, just a question. Which came first, the loan or the letter? I didn't know. But I wrote it down. Tuesday after chess I stayed. Bernard and Kweku had already gone, Lionel too, coat on before the pieces were back in the box. I sat at the board a few extra minutes, not thinking about chess. Then I went looking for Desmond at the periodicals table where he always is. Retired city surveyor. 40 years reading land documents. I told him the shape of it, delinquency notice, parcel address, my signature on something. I didn't remember signing the way Calvin said I'd signed it. Desmond listened without interrupting. At the end he set down his magazine and gave me one name. Patricia Sosa. Former court examiner, private practice. Tell her I sent you. He looked at me the way people look when they've understood something you haven't said out loud. Your son, yes. He picked up his magazine again. I'm sorry, Gerald. I told him not to be yet. Didn't know if that was true. Said it anyway. Patricia's office was on the second floor of a building that needed the elevator fixed. I took the stairs. Needed to do something physical before sitting still again. Her desk had nothing on it that wasn't being used, a good sign in my experience. She examined the funeral letter without speaking, then asked me to describe the signing. Room, time, who was present. I answered accurately. Then she asked how close Calvin and I were. I paused 4 seconds. Answered a different question instead, something about the 2019 estate logistics. She didn't follow up. Neither did I. She charged $180 an hour. I didn't ask how many hours. 10 days, she said. Which sounds like nothing, until you're the one sitting with a question that has an answer somewhere, and no way to reach it yet. Her primary finding. The funeral letter was authentic. My signature valid. Notarization confirmed. I almost said case finished out loud. Almost stood up. Then she said there was a secondary finding, the metadata on the land transfer document. She turned her laptop toward me. 2 dates. Side by side. The transfer had been filed 6 weeks before the funeral. Calvin forged the land transfer first. Then came to his mother's burial with a notary, a pen, and a grieving father who couldn't read anything that day. The funeral letter wasn't the crime, it was the cover. I looked at the dates until I was sure I was reading them right. Then I wrote in my notebook. He planned it before she was gone. 6 words. Set it on the table. That evening I remembered something Margaret said in 2018. About a year before her father's health started going. We were at the kitchen table late. She was talking about the land, what would happen to it, whether to sell eventually. Calvin could use it someday, she said. If he ever builds something real. I hadn't responded much. Thought Calvin was still finding his direction. Margaret was always more generous about that than I was. Calvin had been in that kitchen. He heard her say it. He decided not to wait to find out if she meant it. 2 days later Calvin's wife Diane called. Carefully warm, slightly too careful, the way people are when they know part of something and not all of it. She said Calvin had been stressed. Said Marcus asked about me. I told her Marcus could call anytime, he had my number. She asked if there was anything she could do. I said no. Thanked her, hung up. Sat with the phone in my hand a moment. I could have told her everything right then. The dates, Patricia's report, all of it. Put the phone down instead. Wrote in my notebook Diane called. Didn't tell her. Not her fault. Saturday I laid it out. Patricia's report printed. Reversal document reviewed by a property lawyer, Desmond referred. 2 chairs at the kitchen table. The plan written in order, primary finding first, then page 4, then the dates. 1 hour to sign or the report goes to the bank, and the county clerk the same hour. Final line in my notebook, don't explain. Don't argue, let the dates explain. Calvin arrived at 7:02. I know because I checked when he knocked, not anxious, just noting. He stepped into the kitchen and read it immediately. 2 chairs, 1 table, report face down in the center, my notebook to the side. He's been reading rooms his whole career. His expression didn't change. He sat down without being asked, which told me everything about how prepared he thought he was. I sat across from him. Turned the report face up. Slid it to the center. Set a pen beside it. Said nothing yet. Let him look at Patricia Sosa's name on the cover and decide what that meant. I started with her credentials. 1 sentence. Former court examiner, 22 years, private practice now. Then the primary finding. Funeral letter authentic, my signature valid, notarization confirmed. Said it without expression, looking at him while I said it. Giving him the finding that might have saved him, because I needed him to understand that what came next wasn't a bluff. His posture shifted, barely, but I saw it. He had prepared for the signature to be the trap. He thought that was all I had. I said turn to page 4. He turned to page 4, the metadata printout. 2 dates in a column. I let him read it. Then, the transfer was filed 6 weeks before the funeral. He looked at the dates and didn't speak. You came to your mother's funeral with a notary in your pocket. Still nothing. I folded my hands on the table and kept my voice at the same level it had been since he walked in. I have one question. Did you decide to do this before she got sick, or after? He looked up. When he answered, his voice was quiet, not defensive, just quiet, like a man who has accepted something. Does it matter? I held that for a moment. Jaw tight. Let it go. No, I said. I suppose it doesn't. I opened my notebook to the reversal document. Set it in front of him. You have 1 hour. If you sign, report stays with me. The loan is yours alone. The land goes into trust for Marcus, his when he's 30. If you don't sign, I call the bank and the county clerk from this table. Same hour. Both calls. He looked at the document, then at me, and us. I said sign the document, Calvin. He picked up the pen. 40 minutes later he signed it, pushed it back across the table, sat for a moment without moving. Then she would have given it to me. If you'd asked her. I looked at him. I know, I said, 2 words. He waited, maybe expecting more. There wasn't more. He stood, walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame without turning around, then left. I sat at the table after the door closed, the signed document in front of me, kitchen quiet. I wrote in my notebook Calvin signed. Land to Marcus Trust. He believes she would have given it to him. He's probably right. He didn't ask. Closed the notebook. Didn't open it again that night. Property lawyer's office 2 days later. Transfer reversal filed. Trust document executed. Parcel beneficiary Marcus Osei, accessible at 30. I signed both documents. Read them first. Both of them, fully, without rushing. The lawyer asked if I had questions. I said no. Took my copy and walked out into a Tuesday afternoon. Same kind of afternoon it had been when the envelope arrived. Except the land now belonged to the right person. Calvin's development deal collapsed inside 3 weeks. The loan had the parcel as its only collateral. Once the reversal filed, the bank called it. 3 investors pulled out when the structure fell apart. I heard this from Desmond, who heard it from the land records office. I wrote it in my notebook without comment. 1 line. Same way I'd note a branch I'd flagged 2 years ago finally coming down. Marcus came over the following Saturday. We started the garden, the one I'd been meaning to start since Margaret left it. Soil turned, beds marked. 1 fruit tree discussed at length. He asked real questions and actually listened to the answers, which is rarer than people think. Before he left, he mentioned his dad had said there was a disagreement about something. I told him the important things were okay. He nodded and accepted that. The way 14-year-olds do when they know they're getting the adult version. We agreed he'd come back the next Saturday to keep going. I still think about what Calvin said before he left. She would have given it to me. And I still think he was probably right. Margaret was generous that way, more than Calvin ever knew to appreciate. He could have asked her, could have waited. He didn't. That's the part I carry, not anger, just the specific sadness of knowing it didn't have to be this way. Some mornings it's heavier than others. Monday morning a week later. Kitchen table. Newspaper, blue pen. Mail comes early now. I check it before breakfast, which is new. Bills, a hardware catalog, nothing that needs a third reading. I set it down. Open my notebook, volume 39. First page still blank the way I always leave it. Pick up the blue pen. Outside the window the garden is started. Not finished. Started, Familique's Revenge. Subscribe if you're staying, like if Gerald got what he deserved. See you on the next one.